Aloha and welcome. This is the F.A.P.E Now television program. My name's Gerald de Heer, and it is my privilege and honor to be your program host. And before we get into our action-filled program, and we got a lot to cover tonight, folks, let me explain what F.A.P.E is. F.A.P.E, Free Appropriate Public Education. And it is the law that all of us are entitled to a free, appropriate public education. And for over 20 years, F.A.P.E Now has been on Olelo, bringing issues about education to the community, i.e. all of us. Originally, the program started as an advocacy program for the special needs community, but since has expanded into a full litany of resource programs about education, and not necessarily public schools or private schools, about education in general. And tonight, we're going to be talking about a real innovative not-for-profit school called Assets, and they do all the way from grades K to high school. We'll get into it in just a minute. So in any case, when you're looking, I think right about here on the screen, you'll see phone numbers, websites, and that sort of thing. Feel free to copy it down, or of course you can go back online and review the program, because at olelo.org you can find a rebroadcast of this program. And so if you have any pertinent information, I would suggest that some of you out there may have students, potential students, who might be well served to enter Asset School, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So, we're on every fourth Friday. So if you're watching us, it's the fourth Friday on Olelo at 7:30, and of course on the weekends every Saturday, regardless of first, second, or third, or fourth Saturday at 2:30. And of course, if you don't see us on Olelo 54, we're also sometimes broadcast on other stations. Wherever you're watching us, well, thank you, welcome aboard, and we hope we can provide an informative and entertaining program for you. All right, Asset School, welcome everybody.
Hi.
We have a full house today, so I want to make sure I'm going to check with my never wrong notes here. Sandi, Tadaki.
Yes, that's me.
Now it says here, Asset School's Assistant Head of School and Admissions Director.
Absolutely.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
So what does that really mean?
Well, most of my job entails talking to families who might be interested in placing their students at our school. I have the privilege of helping them unpack what their students' learning profiles are and inform them about how assets might be able to support their children's success in school. So it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do that.
And welcome to F.A.P.E Now.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming on board.
Thanks so much for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Counselor Russell Lau, welcome. You're one of the genius masterminds about how this all gets funded and all that. But welcome to F.A.P.E Now, and why is it that you're here?
Well, I'm here because I love this school. This school really does an incredible job in educating young people, particularly young people that have special needs or special differences that are not really well handled in the normal public school type of environment, or even some of the private school environments. This school is really unique, really serves a purpose, and it really helps change family lives. And I can go into more detail about that. But
now, by the way, the grade level, is it preschool or just K to high school senior?
It's K. They actually have two campuses. One campus is K through 8, and the other campus is for high school. That's really from 9 through 12. So they cover the entire secondary educational process from kindergarten all the way up to high school.
Okay, well, we'll get into that too. Now, you have a relative of yours. We don't really allow relatives. No, I'm kidding about that. But Gregory Lau, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
What brings you to our to our shire, if you will?
I'm the only one with personal experience of what it's been like.
Oh, you actually graduated.
Yes, yeah. So, Asset School alumnus. And, happy to.
So what happened to you after you graduated? Were you like, did you join the police force?
No. So I actually have several graduate degrees. I just love school so much, I guess. But I am an attorney now. I had the fortunate opportunity to work for Senator Inouye for a little bit, and that inspired me to go on and get my law degree. And in fact, I went to George Washington Law, which was his alma mater, primarily because he inspired me to do that. So I'm happy to help out.
And you have a degree in law. Any other specialties?
Yeah, so my graduate degree is in computer science and business as well. So overeducated.
No, and in general terms, and we'll get to specifics in a little bit, being at Assets, what was the one thing of Assets that prepared you for your post-high school graduation career?
So, you know, we recently had an event where I talked about the learning strategies that I learned at Assets that I don't think I would have been able to accomplish my other degrees without. And, you know, it's been a huge asset in both in school and in work. You know, being a little bit different from other kids actually has been a huge boon to me in my work. You know, being a lawyer, looking at things differently from everyone else, I can see issues that other people don't identify, and so I really credit Asset with those techniques and those skills. So
I'm going to step a little bit off our planned script because it's important.
Sure.
I find that the biggest thing in education is teaching and sharing with kids and faculty thinking outside the box. I mean, isn't that in all of our problems facing the world? It's the people who think outside the box. Now, that wasn't how I was taught when I went to. I'm a public schools graduate here from the state of Hawaii.
Yeah. You know, so there was actually I think in the event that we had, I actually talked about the old Apple Think Different commercial from I think it was '97, where they say, "Here's to the crazy ones, the ones who think differently, the round pegs in the square holes." And I say that they market towards those people because the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And I think I was, 7 years old or whatever when that came out. And I actually thought that was about Assets when I first heard it.
But arguably, because it is a small group, everybody at Assets kind of thinks outside the box. That's kind of the requirement, which is really interesting.
Yeah. And it's, like I said, been a huge asset to me. And you know, what it was once a great weakness has become a source of strength for me. And I really think Assets is responsible for that.
You know, the traditional way of thinking was like, I thought when I started in high school, I was going to go to college and get my degree and then become an attorney and so on and so forth. Why I veered off the attorney path and went in another direction. But you're all supposed to take, you know, so what do you take? Political science in college, right? And then certain courses. In the end, I think it's most important to get into postgraduate is a degree. It could actually be in drama, and heavens knows, drama, being an attorney, you have to be kind of good at drama, but almost in engineering. I mean, like those who study engineering also make great attorneys because of that attention to detail, or music. That, you know, the idea is that degrees are just degrees. They're not prerequisites for anything other than growth and knowledge. You follow?
I will say that I think that among my different degrees, they rather than teaching you specific facts or pieces of knowledge, because everyone forgets these things or the law changes over time, so they don't teach you things, they teach you how to think. And that's something that I think Assets really excelled at. Assets is the one that taught me how to think, and the one that taught me how to learn. So I don't think I would be able to have gone through those different degrees without it.
Okay, well, let's get back to the beginning here. And Sandi, this is your portion. We're going to run a little video about just an overview of the school. Let's talk us into that, and just give us a general, like if there what tuitions, what the cost, or anything like that you'd like to share in the admissions process.
Okay. Well, we are a mission-driven school, so we exist to serve students with particular learning profiles. The students who come to us are students who are bright. Their ability to understand and use language is in the average range. Some of our students, like Gregory and his brother Eric, are very bright, and they need to be challenged at higher levels in order to remain engaged as learners. Some people think that if you're gifted, that you don't need any special attention. But in fact, they do. They need a lot of support, make sure that their intellect is nurtured and fed. That's really important. But the students who come to us struggle usually with some aspect of reading that makes it difficult for them to be fully independent. So it could be with phonics, with this area called fluency, and this impacts reading comprehension, and reading comprehension is the very essence of reading. Some of our students struggle with getting their thoughts on paper. The physical act of writing could be problematic for them, or they have so many thoughts, like when you're so bright, so many ideas are going through your head, it's hard to marshal that and be able to focus it. So learning strategies to do that. For some, spelling is very, very challenging, and that's not surprising because English is a very deep language. It's made up of many different languages, and language of origin dictates how you spell a particular word or represent a particular sound. And for some of our students, it's math, understanding the processes of math or the language of math because it is a very specific language. Or for some students with dyslexia, reading math problems accurately is hard. So they need something different, and that's what we do at our school. So students who come to us, because we have this mission, parents need to provide us with documentation that validates that the student's profile aligns with the students that we serve. So it is more involved than what you might find with other schools. So we have IQ testing, cognitive testing, and academic achievement testing, which is the reading, writing, math, and so forth, that helps us to better understand what the student's profile is. It's not necessary for a child to have a formal diagnosis in order to qualify to come to our school. It just is apparent in hearing the student speak about their experiences, or the parent speaking about how they're feeling watching their child struggle. Those are the gap areas, and we fill in
Essence
that.
is very much tied in with dyslexia.
Absolutely, yes.
What are the, well, I mean, I kind of know what the signs are for dyslexia, but do parents realize the degree of dyslexia, if that's a word, if that's a,
The prevalence?
How it is, and how do you, have they ever come and they wonder what's wrong? They think the child might have,
Yes.
but they don't know how extensive, so what's the evaluation process like in a nutshell?
Well, you can start with a basic screening, which I do at the school. It's called the predictive assessment of reading, and based on research, it looks at 4 primary areas that are considered essential in order to develop literacy skills. So you can start at the very bare bones area and then see whether or not there are any issues with acquisition of phonics or with speed and accuracy of naming things. Vocabulary is essential in order to get through and comprehend. And so you can start with something basic like that just to see, is my child on target or not? If there are indications not, then the assessment that I do advises parents as to how significant the difficulty might be and what intensity of intervention the child requires. A parent could go and get a comprehensive evaluation like Gregory has done. And that includes, again, looking at vocabulary, thinking skills, processing speed, and so on and so forth. And then the whole point is to help identify where the strengths are, where the challenges are, so that parents can intervene more specifically, rather than to just say, my student's struggling with reading, knowing that reading is actually comprised of a whole litany of skills. The psychoeducational evaluation helps the parent understand, oh, it's at this level, or it's at this level, and so that's where you need to go. And so it saves time and money, and the earlier you get this done. You're right, parents are very akamai about when their child is struggling. And so the earlier you can get that identified and addressed, the better it is for the child, because struggling in school has a tremendous emotional toll on the child, on their feeling of efficacy. Some students start to feel anxious or depressed or sometimes angry because they feel that they're not getting what the other students are getting, and they can't understand why, and nobody's doing anything to try to identify and support that.
What's the, when you admit a student, you admit at every grade, or they must?
Yes,
Okay.
every grade.
So what is part of it is the journey from you have this problem, whatever it is, let's say it's dyslexia, to where it no longer is a problem. You still have the condition,
Yes.
but nobody really notices anymore because you start becoming integrated into day-to-day life, and So, how long is it for a child who has, say, has a major issue, to the point where they're just part of the class?
At our school,
Yeah.
they all get integrated and become a part of the class, because when we work with students in the K-8 program, the students are grouped with other students at their level, their skill levels. So they don't feel like outliers when they're learning their academic skills.
But are they grouped and this is just in general, and you can
Mm-hmm.
walk me through are they grouped with only people with their condition, or is it everybody? You know, is it just it's a group, and some people may have dyslexia, some people may have some other issue. You know, so is it integrated from the start, or how is it integrated if it is?
The primary focus would be looking at what the students' reading levels are, because that has such significant impact. It has pervasive impact across all academic areas. And so identifying what those areas are and at what level you need to intervene, that's the starting point. And then meeting those students, finding other students with like ability levels and putting them together and then giving them the instruction that they need is really essential to what we do as a program.
I was because I've been to assets
Yes.
in my other job capacity many times, both up the campus by the airport and of course up on the Lava Heights. And now that I think about it, I can't tell you who was which and what. I really can't. You know, I mean, I didn't. If you asked me which one, and I've seen a lot of kids up there, but I could not tell you, you know, where they started. They all seem to be part of it. Now, there's some guys that work a little bit harder and that, but that's like in any school. But they were kids to me, normal, you know.
Right. They are normal kids.
Yeah, I
They're
know.
wonderful kids. And I think that's what's so tricky about learning differences like dyslexia or dysgraphia, which is the writing piece, or dyscalculia, which is the math piece. Those are invisible. You don't know it's there except when the student is in the classroom trying to perform and struggling to do so without any support.
But wait a minute, there was in fact there's a robotics group up there.
Yes.
Now that is definitely pretty technical, you know.
Yes.
I mean, they know more about robots than I do,
Yes.
you know, other than my affiliation with my political party. Joke, folks. But no, they're doing and they've won awards.
They have.
And I mean, I saw the robotic. I mean, there's all sorts of gizmos and stuff.
They are.
I mean, so that you know.
Our kids are very capable thinkers.
Yeah.
They're wonderful problem solvers. A lot of them are really talented in the visual or performing arts, robotics. I mean, those
Sandy,
types of
tell
things.
them what awards they've won.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not this past year, but last year we won the state championship
That's right.
in the first league, and we went to Houston, Texas to participate in that. And we had 2 students. Our robotics program is really young. It's only about 5 or 6 years old, I think.
Yeah, but you've made some.
We have made huge gains. And last year and this past year, 2 of our students were selected from the entire state to represent the state at the international competition. And they get pooled, the candidates representing all these different countries and states get pulled together, and from that entire pool, one of our students, Emily, was selected as a winner of a scholarship or
College scholarship.
yeah, it was quite a coup.
There's a story I've used on other F.A.P.E. now shows. I haven't identified the student as assets because I prefer to keep it confidentially. But since you guys are here today, you know, and we're talking about it, there was a young man I encountered 2 years ago, and you have a there was a classroom in which everybody, you know, they have someone in this corner is doing rock and roll, someone in this corner is doing classic, somebody here is doing jazz, somebody else is doing, you know, it's sort of like a real eclectic class. Then there's this young man in the corner playing Brahms. Now, I love classical music, but Brahms is not your day in the beach kind of. It's highly complicated. And so I sat next to him and I said, why this? He said, well, I love Brahms. You know, this 17-year-old, you know, and it turns, I think he was very active in space. He was apparently there was a asset student, I think it's the same guy, who got admitted to a program at UH for prospective NASA people. You know, I know it's.
I'm trying to think about who that was.
And this young man who is an asset, I know he's an asset because I was there and we're talking, and they have to. In fact, Greg, when you're going, did they have capstone where you had, at the end of the year, you had to explain what you were doing?
I don't
No.
think so, no.
No, we don't do capstone projects.
Well, it's sort of like, the seniors had to like do,
Oh.
I know I call it capstone because when I was in college, they called it
Yeah.
capstone, but
We have senior night, and at senior night, the students talk about what their journey has been like through school
right.
prior to attending assets, and what skills and tools they've acquired while being at assets,
Right.
and then where they're going to go and take those tools and use them.
So I was there. I sat in the back, and there was two students that gave a presentation. This young man gave a presentation. Apparently, you got involved at UH with a program that was affiliated with NASA, and he came up with a software in C. Now, for those of you who know, I am not a computer programmer, even though I have a degree in one, right? But he was able to get C to talk with C+, which is a difficult task. You guys know, you all know about this.
I'm an early CUDA programmer, and so I definitely know the pains of trying to work with C and C++.
Okay, so he had to find, and apparently they were going to, NASA was going to launch a satellite that eventually would be positioned over the Big Island, and this was going to be to survey agriculture and weather and that sort of thing. And so big deal. But he came up with a program that the systems on that satellite that were talking in C+ could talk with C, in space.
Wow.
Now, not bad for a 17-year-old.
Yeah,
I mean, we need like one of those kids in every high school in America, if talk about competitive edge. And fantastic. And he's talking, and I was trying to keep up with him. I know a little bit about computers. I studied it, but this young man is like, and I know he was indulging me because obviously, I'm like a dinosaur compared, but incredible.
I think that's Chris, and he got to that point as a result of his experiences in our mentorship program. In our high school, from 10th through 12th grades, students can work with a mentor in the community at a job site, learning the skills that are affiliated with that particular place of employment, and then find out really what that's like. And they do that every Wednesday. Instead of coming to campus, they go straight to their mentorship site, and they do that from mid-September all the way to the first week of April.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he
This
was able to do that.
And NASA doesn't give out contracts to 17-year-olds. I mean, that just doesn't happen. But it did happen this one time. So, Russell, you're there. You have exceptional students. You have challenge students. Let's say a man like this young man we were just talking about. How do you pay for all this?
Well, it's a real challenge. Private schools in Hawaii are a bargain compared to private schools on the mainland. Hawaii, a private school like Asset School in New York, there's a private school there that costs $76,000 a year, similar to Asset School, but Assets is less than half that price. It's less than some of the more expensive private schools here in Hawaii, even though their student-teacher ratio is smaller at Assets than the other schools. We're at 8-to-1. The key determinant for success in private schools or for education is low student-teacher ratios. Assets provides that. So how do we do it? First off, we were able to acquire our 2 campuses because of our financial strength. We actually had the cash to be able to simply pay for those out of the cash that we had, out of the investment funds that we already had. We're not a richly endowed school, and so we have to go out and raise money every year. We go out and do a lot of fundraising. All of our fundraising efforts all goes to student tuition for scholarships. We do have some assistance from some particular donors. Kamehameha Schools is one of our beneficiaries that help us with a small amount, a 20% approximate to help us fund schools. But we're very frugal. Because we have the buildings all paid for, we don't have any debt, and we can just focus in on making sure that the teachers are properly compensated. We run a pretty lean shop, but our teachers our administrators like Sandi are very satisfied with their compensation, partly because they're mission driven as well. They're passionate about doing a good job to help Hawaii's children be properly educated so that they can become good, productive citizens. And it's our calling that we make sure that we get out to the community. And when we run our fundraising efforts, we really actually do a very good job at. We cajole, we twist people's arms, we plead, but it's all for a good cause, and it's well worthwhile.
There's something that you slipped in there. I know you didn't do it surreptitiously or anything like that, but you have a campus in Olelo Heights. Now, Olelo Heights is beautiful, and if you've ever been to the campus, it has a $1 million view.
The views are spectacular.
And you also have an operation right by the airport, and then on used to be a federal property, and they're paid for. All
That's right.
The Rockefellers didn't finance this. This has come up, but people in Hawaii did this. Now, obviously, you put some considerable money into it, but paid for. No financial
Debt, no debt.
no issues.
I'm a banker, no debt.
About that loan I applied. Since we're on F.A.P.E. now. I'm kidding, folks. This has nothing to do with my... Anyway, go ahead.
We were able to run our financials very tightly, very prudently for many, many years. The school got started, 1955? And since it was founded, the administrators have always run a very prudent fiscal plan so that normally schools don't always cover their depreciation. Asset School has always covered their depreciation in their income statement so that we break even. Our goal is to break even every year with a full depreciation schedule. Because we take really good care and maintenance of our buildings, we actually don't have to spend as much as the depreciation actually we incur. And that cash that has come in was enough over the years to be able to buy both campuses with the cash we had on hand. That's highly unusual. That's not normally the case. Normally,
it's kind of impossible, actually.
It's pretty much impossible. Yeah. But this school, because of the financial acumen of the administrators, the trustees, we've been able to fund the school and buy 2 major assets, about 8 acres, really, for based on the cash that we had. Now, that doesn't mean we can continue to do this. We got to make sure that we continue to run the school prudently, and we need to make sure that we are able to continue to do the fundraising. So we want to get the word out there that, hey, this school, while it's a private school, it really serves a public purpose in the sense that we're out there to help children become fulfilling, good community members, and we provide a service that some of the private and public schools can't provide. We are specialists in this area, and so we are able to get people to help us contribute money, donate money to the school to help us continue our mission.
If a child, let's say, they're listening to this program, or they heard about assets, and certainly the word is out there in the community about the school. This is, parents watching, and they're, let's say, family, 4-income family, barely making it because they pay rent in Hawaii. 4 older kids, young man or young woman shows that they could have some interest in robotics or art or music or engineering or history, and they just need a little bit of if they can get into an asset situation, the doors open up. They just got to apply themselves. But mom and dad and grandpa and grandma and the extended cannot afford private education. They can't. They can't and make rent. It just isn't going to happen. How do you get that person through this? Or are they automatically put to the back of the line? How do you handle that?
It's a challenge. We require people to fill out the FAFSA form. That there's a...
It's FAPE. FAFSA is college.
Yeah. What is it called?
We use FACS.
FACS.
Well,
financial
fascia
aid.
is,
So-
is financial need, but
the financial.
it's the same difference,
It's the same-
just
Yeah,
different.
right.
Okay, got
Same,
it.
same concept.
So that way we standardize all the needs, and then we look at how much money we actually have, and how much we've actually been able to raise. And I think, Sandy, we're contributing somewhere for those particular students that need it, anywhere from $8 to $12 or
Yes.
$1,000 a year for the students. And when we bring in someone and we make those kinds of commitments, we're essentially, to a large extent, making sure that we understand that we got to help these people for not just 1 year, but for many years, because otherwise you help them for a little bit, but you may not have finished the job in the skill building that we try to have them learn while they're at asset school. And so we know that it's multi-years that we've got to help.
Yes.
And so we really need to raise that money.
So what the bottom line is that for those who are watching, that if they think they have a young man or woman that is qualified, that might be benefit, and by the way, they don't have to be necessarily genius level. They can also be people who are struggling in life from some of the other
Struggling
problems, right?
learners.
Whatever. If you think that assets can help you, assets will find a way to get you in the school. They're not going to escort you off the property simply because your IRS statement doesn't fit the right profile.
Yeah, this school is really, I of the schools that I've been involved in, and I've been involved in several others, this school is truly what I call mission driven. They're out there to educate children. They know that they need to help these kids with learning differences. They can be geniuses, but they may have a problem socializing with other kids. They may be slow learners because they have a reading or language translation skill set, or they may be hyperactive and bouncing around in class and creating disruption in classrooms. But these kids are all our children. And what we want to do is we want to see what we can do to help those people.
You know what I noticed this is going on in Hawaii, and we will get back to but it's almost every program we're doing these days. It's innovation and thinking outside the box. That's really the trend. It's not even money. A few months ago, we did a program about food to kitchen, farm to table, and how a farm to table program has been incorporated into the public schools of Hawaii, which basically promotes Hawaii products and the fact that the government's already paying millions of dollars to purchase food. Why not purchase it from local farmers? Well, they not only found a way to do that, but also to involve kids to teach them how to cook the food and how to manage and all that. And this is now and basically they're looking at selling whole local food on the mainland. It has all sorts of good implications. Started by some cafeteria managers who thought they had a better idea. And so happening. We had another program in which is electrical contractor, and what they are, basically they implement federal projects at hundreds of millions of dollars of federal projects, and they need to train people to do the work of federal projects, i.e. electrician type of stuff. They not only have found a way to train them, but also that the graduates, and you can be from 16 to 22 years old, after they graduate from the program, they now are qualified for $80,000 to $100,000 a year jobs.
Oh.
Instantly in the middle class, and they're 22 years old.
Wow.
I mean, again, it is quasi-public funded because of the Federal Defense, but what we're finding, and this is one of the things, when we first started doing F.A.P.E, at least when I first started doing this program, there was all this funding issues and budgets and all that, and it's still there. Money issues are still there in the government, but it's amazing how educators in different aspects, you guys are part of that, have actually adjusted to it and, made, pardon the cliche, lemons to lemonade. It really, and this is happening in Hawaii. There is good news about Hawaii. And I'm finding it, and I didn't realize when we were, doing the research for the program, I thought, Assets is one of those types of schools too, that there's a lot of things happening that, You know, people need to scratch a little bit under the surface. There's some good stuff happening that we can be proud of in the community.
Absolutely.
I mean, and we gotta start recognizing. I've done shows on this program about auditing the Department of Education, and believe me, there's a lot to audit and a lot to criticize. But I also realize there are a lot of people in education, good guys and the bad guys, and the bad guys being the government guys, and they're really not bad, that they want it to improve, and we've just got to keep pushing it, you know? We got to keep the focus on the ball. We can do this. It's not going to be easy, but there's some opportunity, particularly now, that's happening. Anyway, and let me get off the rant here, but it just, as I'm listening to you guys, you know, wait a minute. Here's you guys are another one, you know? I mean, we gotta start like tuning our horn a little bit. Not out of cockiness, but of the fact that, yes, there are people that are going to, you know, really make a difference, and they can. So parents out there, grandparents, you know, go to your
Give
website.
me a call.
Your website, or call you directly?
My information is on the website.
Okay.
Feel free to call. I'm happy to give people a tour. I'm happy to chat, find out more about their child and how our program might be able to help.
It's Sandi Tadaki. Sandi Tadaki.
All right. Yeah. And for Finance Factors, Russell Lau.
Yes.
No, sorry, Olelo. That was not a commercial. That was just a little bit of, you know. But Greg, what kind of law do you specialize in?
Cybersecurity and
Cyber, of course. You know.
recently I picked up artificial intelligence as well, but in college I specialized in cybersecurity and AI, neither of which were very big at the time, but both of them have become huge recently. So, things in Hawaii have been a little bit different than out on the East Coast. So here in Hawaii, it's been a lot more. Well, I guess so. I practiced in DC for 9 years, I think, before moving home during COVID. And out there, I worked for this big tier 1 law firm, and clients would retain us. I'd hack into their stuff, and then we provide them with breach analysis. So, like, if I was an outside attacker, what's the liability associated with that? And then here in Hawaii, I think that people don't, they don't quite have the same budgets that we saw out on the East Coast. And so a lot of the work that I've done here has been reactive. People will come to me and say, oh, I've been hacked. What do I do now? Rather than how do I prevent myself from being hacked?
What do you recommend schools do to prepare? Because AI is
Certainly
the trend. It's bigger than anything that's ever happened to us.
So, I have strong opinion, being an AI person, I have strong opinions about AI's appropriate use in education, but I don't know that they necessarily align with.
Just say it.
But
we're all friends here. We can argue about
I think that AI schools need to teach around AI, right? AI is not going anywhere. I always like to talk about the Luddites. The Luddites were, it's often used as an insult these days, but if people don't know the origin of the Luddites, they were highly skilled craftsmen. They were weavers, I believe. So they were highly skilled people that were worried about the loom replacing them, and the loom could produce textiles that were not as good as the ones that the Luddites could produce, but it could produce it way cheaper, way faster, and in greater quantity. And so the Luddites went in and destroyed all of the looms. And so I think that we have a natural reaction to technology that comes in. All the highly, that we're seeing this with AI, where all the highly skilled jobs are, where is AI going to take my job? And I think that schools should be teaching around AI rather than trying to prevent its use. And certainly, we don't want students to cheat, right? So, for example, if you're learning English, and you need to learn how to construct a sentence properly, using AI to do that for you, you wouldn't be learning the subject matter. But if we're learning how to craft essays, for example, maybe the AI can help you with maybe the smaller language, or really help you focus in on what that class is supposed to be teaching you. And so I think that schools, rather than shying away or prohibiting the use of AI, should be teaching around it. It's a tool that is not going anywhere. And students will need to know how to use it moving into the future.
All right, panel at large. I think we've just heard a pretty cogent presentation about the implications of AI. It's not going anywhere. everybody in the world, particularly in Hawaii, has a cell phone. We live on the cell phone. In fact, before we were doing this show, we were all at one point on the cell phone, right? Or the smartphone, I should say. The biggest ad going on is, you know, why do your homework? You can get an AI program to do your homework, you know, or your schoolwork or your office work. And why not? Why do you need to write a letter to someone? You don't even need to learn English. AI will do it for you. Okay. Now you're your students. They all know this. They are more sophisticated. They're closer to Greg's level of AI than they have ours. I'm not saying that we're complete ignoramuses about it, but they have no qualm about using AI. All right? How do you control that, even in a hip school like Assets?
Oh,
This is a, it's, I know, I don't want to make you sound like a police person, but this is kind of real.
yeah, I know. You're talking about on the student end, not the teacher end.
Well, the teachers too, but primarily the students.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't think your teachers, I know a few, but I don't think they're that dishonest. I just can't imagine them doing it. But, so let's just focus on the students who might be tempted to cheat a little bit.
I know there are ways that you can go about
I will-
testing for plagiarism. I'm sorry, I'm not the curriculum person,
Right?
so I I can't speak from practical experience.
I will say that I think that if I were a student today, I'd really, I think, and part of why I think Assets is so great and part of why I love it is that they really instilled in me an enthusiasm for learning, and I don't think that I would have been tempted into using AI to cheat my English exams, for example, or I guess English essays, simply because I had a blast doing homework when I was a kid, and I think that if I were using AI to circumvent that, it would have been robbing me of that opportunity. But maybe I don't speak for every kid, and certainly there are people out there who are using AI today to cheat in their college level essays and exams and stuff like that, and so
Yeah, well, AI may not turn everyone into criminals, but it is definitely one of these things, you know, I mean, it's like instant product, you know, and just add water and you got yourself a term paper done.
It's amazing. If you've used it, there's so many applications. And I think when you're talking about cheating from the teacher standpoint, if they want to do a student evaluation, they can just put in keywords and put out a student evaluation instantly. I mean, or even recommendations for schools and things. That could be frightening.
I think the easiest way to test if a student is actually learning the material that you're teaching to is if you suspect that someone is using AI, to ask them about it, you know. So say you have a paper on the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Someone has this really in-depth paper that's extremely well written. You simply ask the student about it. If they actually wrote the paper, they should have no problem being able to answer all of the questions that you have about the paper.
Right.
And so, you know, it depends on what they're using the cheating for. If they maybe they did use AI to write that paper, but they also input all of the information that they wanted to go into the paper. You know, if you're learning about the Roman Empire, then that's fine. If the class is one on English construction, maybe that's another problem.
All right, well, let me go back. I'm not giving up on this just yet. The state of writing in America. I believe most colleges actually have remedial writing programs for freshmen who've come out of public and private schools, like the Punahous of the world. Okay, so there is a writing deficit, arguably. Now, I'm old enough to remember I actually had to write a paper, and I had Mrs. Lee was my English teacher at Roosevelt, and she taught me a lot about writing. You know, nouns, verbs, the whole thing. I don't think there are teachers like her that are that good because, first of all, she's able to read what I wrote in paper. That she knew I wasn't using AI because I didn't understand it, and it was way before that. But the ability to write a coherent paragraph, to communicate to someone, to influence, that's a skill that is really sort of fading in the woodwork here, and I don't think that's such a good thing for all of society.
Actually, not at our school. We explicitly teach writing
Really?
because it's such an important skill. And insofar as the AI is concerned, what Greg was talking about was really interesting because there are different levels at which you can insert AI. You know, you could input the ideas and have the AI craft and smooth out and do that and even if AI did generate something, it's not perfect. They've had many examples in which falsehoods were included in the writing. So it's not that, I mean, it's not a perfect tool. And helping students learn to lean into it, like educators need to lean into it. That is, you can't ignore it. Yes, you're right. We need to learn how to do that.
I don't know if anyone here has tried to get AI to write a paper, but one thing I've noticed is that it doesn't include proper citation. And then in fact, there was a famous case with the out of New York, where a lawyer submitted a brief written by ChatGPT that had a whole bunch of hallucinations in it, and it cited cases that didn't exist. And and the only checking that this lawyer did was to ask ChatGPT, are these real cases? And of course, ChatGPT said, yes, they're real cases. And so that lawyer was sanctioned for that. But even if you ask it to write a paper about the Roman Empire or whatever topic, the AI will never have great citations. And part of that is because of the way they're implemented. The ChatGPT, the LLMs, the ChatGPTs and the Geminis of the current day are implemented using, I won't get overly technical here, but they're implemented using pre-trained transformer networks. And those do not lend themselves particularly well to accurate citation. And so, you know, that's another, you know, if you're trying to submit plagiarize, or I guess it wouldn't be plagiarized, but an AI generated paper, you'll also have the issue of not having any citations in your paper.
You're in a major financial institution here. You have to recruit because you got a lot of employees. Has the writing ability of the people you're bringing in gone up, gone down, stayed the same? Don't notice it.
I'm probably not the best person. I normally get my reports from my senior executives.
Oh, they're checking your writing.
So they're older people, and they're not the younger people coming right off. We actually gear a lot of things so that the people that we're hiring can function and perform the tasks that they're given. And so, and they do. The people that are actually writing real reports, financial reports and all, are much more, they're better educated, and they have to write reports. And so their skill sets are critical. And it's hard to, you can be a numbers guy, and you can generate all the reports, the financial reports, but you might struggle on giving the analysis and interpretation of the data that's being presented. And so that creates a whole different area. We actually have specific people to go and look at the financial reports and write up a report telling us what it's really saying. And the intricacies of the ins and outs and the variations on the financials. And then we have pretty smart executives that can interpret and understand everything. So I'm not seeing it per se, but that may be because I'm too high up in the organization, and I'm not working with the people that are newer to the organization at a lower level or starting level in our company. I don't necessarily deal that much with them. I work shoulder to shoulder on nonprofits with them, and their attitudes and their energy is the same as it's always been. Like next Friday, we'll have a big charity breakfast, and I'll work shoulder to shoulder with them, and they're just as energetic and just as hard driving, but I cannot tell their writing skills at that point.
I just thought of it as you're describing it. In fact, as one of the students I had when I was in his English class at Assets, and this exercise was basically they had to do some creative writing about a situation. And long story short, it was kind of like an advertising campaign. I mean, and I'm oversimplifying, but basically, and one student turned in a report, and I read that, and it was just as good. I've been in television for a while, and she could be tomorrow. Start in this business, you know. I don't recommend it because you still need to go and get life experience, but she had the skills already. You could see it. I looked at it and I just put the paper and I said, you know, you have a career in advertising if you want.
Terrific.
No, but that comes out of writing. She's able to communicate an idea, and you get it. You know, you just reach. Oh, I get it. You know, and that is still as I've gone to a lot of different schools, and it's just not happening. It just isn't.
So good for you, Sandy, to make sure
You're whipping them into shape.
you're keeping them on top.
That's it.
I
They're
wish I
going to
could-
get jobs.
I wish I could get credit for that, but that's the teachers.
No,
Those
but
are our
it's a
teachers.
team.
Yeah.
It's all of us are doing it. You know, we gotta just sort of hold the line here and say, come on, guys, let's create. But that to me, if there's a deficit in education right now, probably is writing.
You know, everyone's watching YouTube and
Texting.
and texting is probably the worst thing for proper grammar. I mean, even when I text, I don't put the exclamation points or the periods at the end of.
Oh,
of
LOL
comments.
that.
Yeah, I mean, and so you don't learn proper English.
Right.
I mean, everything's truncated. So the question is, if you are trying to communicate, it works. The texting works, but if you want to put out a report or something that people can understand, that may not be the best. But if Asset School is doing that,
Well, see,
we're in there.
Sandy's now on the spot because
Well,
you better.
We're in the
everyone's going
sweet spot, Sandy.
Well, I think one of the
I'm kidding.
no, but I think one of the best applications for our students is when they are in a mentorship position and they have to write something for their mentor.
Explain the mentorship. We sort of glossed over it.
That's a good point.
But let's explain it in a little bit more detail. That's kind of real important.
Okay.
You mentioned that several times.
The mentorship is like a school to work program where students learn firsthand what it's like to be in a workplace. And of course, our students have no skills. They're going in completely cold. But the process involves them learning how to write a resume, a cover letter, how to manage an interview with a prospective employer. And we start this in 9th grade, but the mentorships are on campus in groups, so it's quasi-employment situations. And then from 10th through 12th grade, prior to the school year starting, the students are interviewed about what areas they're interested in looking into. So it could be something that they're personally really passionate about, or it could be something that they recognize that they have strength in academically, and they're thinking of pursuing that area of study in college. And so they might go along those lines. So we have a coordinator, Jason Wagner, who and his team will identify employers who are willing to take on our kids. So they're very well vetted, and they understand what their responsibilities are to our students. So our students go to all kinds of places. They go to vet clinics. They've been to the legislature, to the university. They go to retail places, restaurants.
I know some go to cosmetology.
Oh yeah,
You know?
they get licensed
I mean,
during mentorship.
yeah.
Or yeah, so it just depends on what their interests are, and so they go through that process. They get the interview, and as I said, on Wednesdays they go directly to their mentorship site, spend the day there. They are shadowed periodically by faculty. They have to keep a record of what their experiences have been like, and they're going in with no skills. So what we tell the students is, you get as much out of this experience as you're willing to put into it. So if you show a lot of interest, you take the initiative, you show attention to detail, you ask for feedback, then the employer, the mentor will respond by giving you more responsibilities. On the other hand, if you just sit back and, well, this is
We only have about 1 minute left.
okay.
Yeah, you see how time flies when you're having
Yeah,
fun.
it does.
And I'm sorry I missed half the notes in here, but
No,
that's,
okay.
but I think we got
So-
a lot of good time. I want to talk a little bit about socialization.
Oh.
Kids, peer pressure, deal with that from your different perspectives. Because part of going to school is learning to socialize with other people.
Of course, yes. We have a social emotional learning program at our school. We have social emotional counselors on the lower campus and in the high school. Our students need to feel safe and respected in the environment because of where they've come from and what their experiences have been. And so there's a lot of connectivity with teachers, with administrators, with counselors to make sure that all students feel safe. And if we're noticing that a student seems to be struggling, interventions actually are put in place to support the child.
We're down to 1 minute, and so we just scratched the surface because, you know, forgive me, you bring up so many interesting topics like AI and stuff like that, and off we go into that tangent. So in order to bring back some other tangents, I think we should have you back sometime in 2025. You know, give us an update, you know, as to what's happening, anything new at the school. You know, if you don't mind, I think we should.
We'd be happy to do that.
Because
I think people like Sandi and some of the other administrators are excellent people to get the message across of what good work the school does to help the young people. And the sooner we get them into the system, the better off they are. And the socialization that you were talking about, when they are self-confident by going into a school like this, they feel better about themselves and they do so much better in the workplace.
And with that, you have the last word. Congratulations, Counselor. But anyway, thank you all. Thank you, Assets, for coming to the program.
Thank you so much for having us.
Aloha, everyone. This is F.A.P.E. Now.